Good morning, boys and girls. May 7th, 2020, time for some reading. I just want to remind you, I hope you're putting out your I'm the Boss of the Reading name tag while you're reading or while you're working on your reading on your computer. I hope you are using your strategies, that toolkit that I sent you in the mail. I hope you're remembering to use your strategies when you come to hard words. We've been working on going on a reading adventure. The first poster is right behind me. We talked about taking a sneak peek or taking a preview, depending if it's fiction or nonfiction. We talked about retelling, keeping track of the details. Right over here, we have the wish tree and the nonfiction picture. We talked about putting post-it notes when we see facts for nonfiction and putting post-it notes in the story for things I want to go back, things I want to remember. And then we also talked about predicting. This one down here, we talked about predicting about what would happen next in the story, or maybe even in nonfiction, predicting what kind of facts I might be learning about my topic. The next one that we talked about was really learning about the main characters and also learning about the main details. So main characters for fiction, main details for nonfiction. So our next step that we're going to talk about, good readers reread. Lots of different reasons I reread. I reread so that I can understand something. I reread so that I can make connections. Maybe I'm trying to understand what I just read. Maybe I'm trying to connect it to the last thing that I just read, or maybe I'm trying to connect it to things that I already know. I use this skill all the time with fiction, and I use this skill all the time with nonfiction, and so do you. When I'm reading, I try to connect the beginning of the story to the middle to the end. When I'm reading nonfiction, I'm always trying to connect the facts together and have them make sense. The last thing here, it says reading to learn more. We read to learn more about the characters. We read to learn more about each character in the book and how they interact, things they might say to each other, maybe things we have in common with the characters. We reread and we reread to learn more about a topic when it comes down to nonfiction. Right now, you already read a book in Epic. You watched a video in Epic. I sent you some reading in your email. We read another piece on your animal. So we're going to keep reading lots of information and learning lots of different things about your animal. For today, I have a book from the Lucy Calkins package called Mr. Putter and Tabby Drop the Ball. And we're going to read it and we're going to see what we can learn about the characters and how they interact with each other. And if we can learn more about each character as we go along. Mr. Putter, and Tabby drop the ball. Okay, taking a sneak peek and looking at the cover. Who do you think Mr. Putter might be? Who do you think Tabby might be? Those are some good guesses, friends. I like that. Okay, and it says on the back, from the author of Henry and Mudge. Did anybody notice that? Did the illustrations look familiar to you? Mr. Putter and his fine cat Tabby loved to nap in the summertime. They loved napping in the garden. They loved napping on the porch. They loved napping in the car. And I forgot to mention to you, this first section is labeled baseball. It seems that we nap all the time, Mr. Putter said to Tabby one day. Tabby was old and her frisky days were over. She loved napping. I think we need a sport, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened one eye. So right away, kind of sounds like Mr. Putter is kind of a positive guy, right? And Tabby's kind of maybe a little old and grumpy, right? I think we need baseball, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened the other eye. I wonder where my old mitt is, said Mr. Putter. He headed to the basement. Tabby was wide awake now. Maybe not so grumpy. 2, the team. Mr. Putter found his mitt. Now all we need is a team, he told Tabby. Mr. Putter called his friend and neighbor, Mrs. Teaberry. Meeting a new character. Mrs. Teaberry would know about a team. She was very sporty. She even walked the dog-a-thon with her dog, Zeke. Of course there's a team, said Mrs. Teaberry. It's called the Yankee Doodle Dandies. Am I too old to play? Asked Mr. Putter. Heavens no, said Mrs. Teaberry, handing Zeke a sniffy bone. You will feel young on that team. I wonder what that means. Will my knees feel young on that team? Asked Mr. Putter. You are not too old, and neither am I, said Mrs. Teaberry. We'll both play. Mr. Putter hung up the phone. I hope I'm not too old, he said to Tabby. Tabby just purred. To her, Mr. Putter was perfect. Get it? So what do we know about Tabby and Mr. Putter? They're very close, aren't they? All right. Number 3, the Dandies. Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke arrived in their baseball clothes. Let's go, said Mrs. Teaberry. They all drove to the ball field. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were in the middle of the game. A batter was running for home. Everyone waited and waited and waited. I'm feeling pretty young, said Mr. Putter. So why were they waiting and waiting and waiting, friends? Yeah, you got it. Took them a little time to run, didn't it? So what do we know about Mrs. Teaberry? Seems like she's pretty friendly, right? And she's being very nice and including Mr. Putter. Let's go play, said Mrs. Teaberry. She looked at Zeke. Stay, she said, patting Zeke's head. Mr. Putter looked at Zeke. No way, Mr. Putter thought. He petted Tabby and went to play. 4, drop the ball. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were very nice. They let Mr. Putter and Mrs. Teaberry play right away. Mr. Putter took the outfield. Mrs. Teaberry took shortstop. The batter came up, swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Thought Mr. Putter in the outfield. I could be taking a nap. Sounds like he's a little bored in the outfield. Another batter came up. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Swing and Mrs. Teaberry leaped into action. She ran for the ball. She reached for the ball. Then glomp. Zeke got the ball. He was very proud. He ran around in circles. Drop the ball, Zeke, everyone yelled. Zeke did not drop the ball. The other team scored. Oh dear, said Mrs. Teaberry. Oh boy, thought Mr. Putter. Uh-oh. Tabby purred in the dugout. Baseball was fun. 5, what a day. Another batter came up. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Swing and a ground ball to third. Mr. Putter couldn't watch. Glomp. Zeke got the ball and ran in circles. The other team scored again. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were not happy. They benched Zeke. Stay, they said. No way, thought Mr. Putter. The score was tied 2-2. If the other team scored again, the Dandies would lose. It's a little intense for his first game, isn't it? A batter came up. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Swing and a hit to the outfield. Mr. Putter leaped into action. He ran for the ball. It was rolling. Rolling. He'd have to bend down to get the ball. Mr. Putter tried to bend down, but his knees said no way. The Dandies were about to lose, but then... Anybody have a prediction? What do you think's going to happen? Glomp. Zeke got the ball. Zeke looked at Mr. Putter. Mr. Putter looked at Zeke. Then Zeke jumped. He jumped and he put the ball right into Mr. Putter's mitt. Then Mr. Putter threw the ball to home, and because the batter was 100 years old and hadn't gotten there yet, the Dandies got him out. Hooray! The game ended in a tie. The Dandies carried Zeke on their shoulders, and they gave Tabby a ride in the peanut box. What a day. Mr. Putter and Tabby and Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke ate 10 free bags of peanuts and drank 3 gallons of water. Then they all found a nice spot in the dugout and took a long nap. Zeke's feet twitched a lot, but he couldn't help it. He was still in the game. Is he really still in the game? No, he's dreaming about it, right? Okay, it says Mr. Putter, outfielder. Mrs. Teaberry, shortstop. Tabby, bench warmer. And Zeke, first base, second base, third base, outfield, catcher, and mascot. He did a lot of running, right? So did we learn more and more about the characters from the beginning of the story? And were we able to connect the story together? Let's see. So beginning of the story, Mr. Putter and Tabby like to, you got it, they like to take naps. And then Mr. Putter said, oh, I think we need to go do something. And he said, how about baseball? And who did he call? Called his good friend, Mrs. Teaberry, and she hooked him up. They got on a team, and right away they got to play a game. How did the story end? They got to play a game, kind of a funny story, playing the game, right? And the score ended up being, you got it, tied. And good book, huh? Did we learn more about the characters as we went along? Absolutely, right? And where did the story take place? That's the one I forgot to ask. You are right, on the baseball field. Well, first at Mr. Putter's house and then the baseball field, right? Our main characters, I heard somebody say Mr. Putter. I heard somebody say Tabby. I heard somebody say Mrs. Teaberry. And then definitely Zeke. You got it. All right, friends. So we're going to keep working on that rereading, and we're going to keep working on that reading to learn more. And today we read to learn more and more about our characters, and we're going to keep reading to learn more and more about our report animal, about our nonfiction topics. Learn more details, compare those details, and learn more and more. Have a good day.